Shalom, friends. Akiva here with Israel in 5, and I want to share with you a great opportunity to win a free trip to Israel. Yes, a free trip to Israel through Meir Panim, who is running a very exciting and important raffle. This is your chance to explore the historical and spiritual wonders of Israel and at the same time help Meir Panim's emergency aid program at this very, very crucial time in Israel's history. The winner will get 2 round-trip tickets to Israel, will get luxury accommodations throughout Israel, will get a private tour of Meir Panim's facilities and operations throughout the country and see the impact of its work. You'll get a chance to meet the real heroes of Israel today, IDF soldiers, and you will visit Israel's south to see and visit the communities that were directly affected on October 7th. You'll have an immersive Holy Land experience, and again, at the same time, help Meir Panim, help Israelis in need. We know that for years, for decades, Meir Panim has been helping all kinds of Israelis, from Holocaust survivors to families living under the poverty line to lone soldiers, with meals and with assistance and with all kinds of programs. And this is the time that Meir Panim needs your help, our help, more than ever during these days of war, to continue to help all kinds of Israelis in need. And during these times of war, there are even more Israelis that need Meir Panim's help. So by buying a raffle, you're getting a chance to win this incredible free trip to Israel, and at the same time supporting the very crucial, essential, and important operations and actions of Meir Panim. Click on Israel5.org/donate or go to the link down below. Buy raffle tickets. The more you buy, the more chances you get. And I hope to see you here in the Holy Land. 20 years ago this week, Israel left the Gaza Strip, fully pulling out its civilians and its soldiers. And just in the past couple of days, the Israeli government has announced its plan to take over the entire Gaza Strip. Let's explore the connection between these two very important events. Shalom, my friends. It's Akiva Grish with Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going, please do so below in the comments. It's big news here in Israel and around the world that Prime Minister Netanyahu has announced in recent days that his government is planning for a full takeover, a possible annexation of the Gaza Strip. This comes in the wake of failed talks between Israel and the Hamas terror organization around the issue of the hostages. Many rounds of negotiations have taken place over the past many months, and they have all been completely unfruitful. And Israel has reached a point where it feels like it can no longer rely on these negotiations. There are hostages who are in there who are being starved to death, and something different and even dramatic needs to happen. Many months ago, Israel did threaten the Hamas terror organization with the possibility of annexation if it did not release the hostages, and we are now at that point. I thought it's important to zoom out a little bit and try to understand, what does that mean? Why would Israel annex the Gaza Strip? And what is the history of Israel's relationship with the Gaza Strip? Like I just said a few moments ago, Israel 20 years ago this week left the Gaza Strip. What does that mean that they left the Gaza Strip? What were they doing there? How did they get there? Let's kind of break it down all in just a couple of minutes. Let's remember, Israel was formed in 1948. The Declaration of Independence took place in May 1948, in the middle of the War of Independence. This was about 6 months after the UN partition plan passed. And this was a plan for the partition of what was left of the Mandate of Palestine, which basically from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Let's also remember that the Mandate of Palestine was much bigger than that size of land after it was passed in the early 1920s by the League of Nations. The British were given the mandate for Palestine only to help the Jewish people create a Jewish state. That's what it said in the mandate, in the text of the mandate itself. Very quickly, a year or so into the mandate, the borders got changed, and about 75% of the land of the Mandate of Palestine was sectioned off, was taken away from the mandate, and Jews were prohibited from settling there or purchasing land there. That land today is basically the country of Jordan. So the Jews were left with about 25% of the original mandate for Palestine, but okay, that land from the river to the sea, literally, the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, that would all become the Jewish state. And that's the last official legal document backed by international law that is on the table, basically, for over 100 years now, that says what should be done with this land between the river and the sea. That includes the state of Israel today, that includes the Gaza Strip, and that includes Judea and Samaria, some people call the West Bank. Now, over the next couple of decades, there was a lot of fighting from the Arab sector in the mandated Palestine against the Jews living there because they did not want there to be a Jewish state. They did not want there to be a Jewish country here. They wanted it for themselves. And that aggression grew and grew in both intensity and in frequency. And by World War II, basically, it was complete chaos here. There was riots, there were revolts from the Arab sector, both against the Jews and by the mid to late 1930s, even against the British in power here, here in Israel, or back then as it was called, the Mandated Palestine. After World War II, when things got really chaotic and there didn't seem to be a solution, that's when the British said to the UN, which was formed after World War II, we give up, we can't solve this problem, you guys deal with it. And that's when the UN came up with the partition plan. They passed it in November 1947. The next day, literally, the Arabs here in the Mandated Palestine started a war, and that was the War of Independence that lasted for well over a year. 6 months into that war, the British left, creating a vacuum of power. Literally hours before they officially and completely left, that's when the Jews, that's when the Zionist leadership declared the independence of the state of Israel. And then the war continued on with Israel fighting multiple Arab nations, which had threatened to attack if Israel or the Jews dared to declare a country, which they did. And so then the Arabs did attack. And that was the War of Independence. When the War of Independence was over, a line was drawn where the ending stopped, the armistice line. It wasn't a peace treaty, it wasn't a peace deal, it was an armistice line where the fighting stopped. That was known as the Green Line. And that is what basically created the borders of the state of Israel today, with the Gaza Strip left out and Judea and Samaria, again, otherwise known as the West Bank, left out as well. What was supposed to be with those lands was unclear. According to the League of Nations, the mandated Palestine was supposed to be part of the Jewish state. According to the UN partition plan, it was supposed to be the Arab country. But that resolution was not legally binding. It had no legal weight to it. It was basically a strong recommendation that came out of the UN. What happened immediately is that Egypt took over the Gaza Strip illegally, and Jordan took over the West Bank illegally. And that's just how things were until 1967. Nobody really cared because it was Arabs, controlling Arabs, it was Arabs oppressing Arabs. Nobody wanted to get involved until 1967, the Six-Day War, and everything changes. Right? Israel is threatened by Jordan, Syria, and Egypt. Syria, and Jordan all lose the war in 6 days, and Israel basically wins land from each of these countries, from Egypt, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Gaza Strip. Right? And that's when Israel starts to take over the Gaza Strip from 1967 all the way to 2005. Eventually, right away, brought in its military. It was military, had a military control over the Gaza Strip, and eventually allowed Israeli civilians to come in and create communities, as the world calls them, settlements. There were almost 10,000 Israeli civilians living in the Gaza Strip by 2005. During those years, it was the first intifada, the second intifada, waves of violence against the Jews living there and around the state of Israel. And in 2005, the Israeli government decided to pull out completely, unilaterally, not part of a peace deal or negotiation, with the hopes of creating a situation for peace. That was at the very end of the second intifada, which was 5 long years of suicide bombings and over 1,000 Israelis killed. Well, Israel did pull out its military and all of its civilians. That was 20 years ago, basically this week. And half the country thought that this was going to bring peace and it was unbelievable, and this is what we've been waiting for. And the other half thought this was only going to bring an even worse situation. Now looking back to the last 20 years, we know who was right. It has only brought a worse situation to Israel. That was in 2005 that Israel left. In 2006, Hamas won the Palestinian elections, and in 2007, they took over control over the Gaza Strip and have been in control ever since. And since then, Israel has had to go to war with Hamas because of rocket attacks, multiple times. And of course, this war that we're in currently is our longest and most difficult war with them. But at the same time, Israel has damaged and destroyed more of Hamas in this war than ever before. I would say even in all the wars together. And Israel is very, very close to completely taking Hamas out of control and destroying their hold on the Gaza Strip. Yet they still do hold on to some power, and yet they still refuse to release the hostages. And that's the situation that Israel is in right now. Israel is looking back this week, 20 years ago, at the mistake it made, pulling out of the Gaza Strip, because it created a vacuum of power that Hamas filled. And since then, Hamas has been using that power and has been using the Gaza Strip as a launching pad of terrorism against the Jewish state. And Israel in this war is basically saying enough is enough. This can't go on and it won't go on. And that is why from the very beginning, from day one, the goal of this war was to get Hamas out of power completely and of course release the hostages. We know that there's still about 50 hostages left, both living and dead in the Gaza Strip. It's very important for Israel to get them all back. And Israel feels like it has no choice at this point. All the negotiations the past many months have all failed. And Israel feels that annexation is the only way to go at this point, right? To take control of the situation, God willing to bring the hostages home and to make sure that Hamas can never again bring terror to Israel and try to harm the Jewish people in the Jewish state. That's a little bit of a look at what's going on right now. What does it mean for Israel to take over? Why would Israel take over? Why now? It all comes together, right? It all comes together. It seems like right now, Israel's declaration that it is planning on taking over the Gaza Strip is a fixing for the mistake that was made 20 years ago, which basically led to this whole situation over the last 20 years. I mean, I think we can say even the war that we're in right now. Right, so things are still unfolding. Things are still being shared with the public. We'll keep you up to date. That's a little bit of the historical context of what it means for Israel to annex, to take over the Gaza Strip today. All the best, my friends, and be well.